We are also looking to see who is named 15595. So if you have a Zoom name that is not your name currently, please either unmute or write your name in the chat so we can record you for our attendance.
I see Linguistica has arrived as well as Marisela. Marisela, can
Hi,
you?
good afternoon.
Oh. Hi, good afternoon.
Okay. So let's get our interpretation started real quick. Thank you so much, everyone, for your patience. Could the Linguistica team let me know who should be in which channel, or do you need a minute?
Yes, so so the account that says Linguistica, if we could assign that one for English to Spanish.
Okay. Are we all set up on interpretation? Yes. Wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you so much, everybody. We are now live on YouTube, and we will finally get our meeting started. Welcome, everybody, to our September Community Steering Committee. This is our 49th meeting together. It's really nice to see everybody here again. As you may know, my name is Liz Lev, and tonight I have the honor of being your facilitator. Tonight I am also excited to welcome Ivanka, who is going to be our co-host for this evening. Similar to last month, we did have another change of plans for this evening. Jem is on the agenda to facilitate, but unfortunately, she is dealing with some personal matters and will not be able to attend. So for this evening, I am accompanied by two of my colleagues, Dr. Gemma Cardona and Dr. Amy Ramos, who will both be responsible for taking attendance, supporting with
Liz,
notes.
Can you make me host again? I mean, co-host, please. Sorry.
Yes. No. There we go. All good? Okay. So we have our two team members here and all of the Air District to support with all these technical difficulties that are bound to happen during these meetings. Feel free to reach out at any point if you're having trouble with interpretation or anything at all. At our last meeting, you may remember that we talked through the status of some of your CERT measures, particularly around the school air filtration and electric bus measures. We also discussed wildfire resources and outreach in your community. Tonight, we have a packed agenda, but first we will go through our meeting logistics. So on my screen, I'm showing you a slide that is likely very familiar already with some instructions on how to select your channel for language interpretation. So I believe I will now pass it to our Linguistica team to take us through these steps. Linguistica. If you're talking, I'm not able to hear you. Can others hear? Yes?
Yes.
Oh. Hmm. No, I might be having technical issues.
I can hear you, Liz. Bill, you
Are
can,
you,
I'm on
were
the,
you
ear-
able to hear the interpretation being?
no, not the interpretation.
Okay. That's what I was wondering about. I think some people can hear the interpretation instructions, but others can't. I think it's most important that our Spanish speakers are in the channel. So can we just make sure that those residents are,
I can hear interpretation now.
Thank you,
Yes.
Javier. And I see a thumbs up from Lilia a moment ago.
okay.
Lilia, can you confirm that you can hear everything? Who else is on from the Spanish channel?
Isabel?
When Lilia is speaking, is it being translated to English for us? Because if it is, that's the part that I'm not hearing. Like I
also
can
cannot
hear
hear.
you, but can't, if she's speaking or if she's being translated for, that's what I can't hear, but I can hear Liz.
Muy bien.
Oh.
Claro que sí. Buenas tardes a todos.
Yes.
¿Sí me escuchan? ¿Las que está hablando español?
Sí, sí, le escuchamos.
Ok. Sí, nada más es para que
Now
si
I can.
ya está la interpretación disponible para si quieren conectarse en el idioma español. Hace ratito yo tenía problemas con mi audio. Tuve que salirme y esperar para poder mover el audio nuevamente. Entonces, ahí están las instrucciones. Dice que en el control del Zoom al final de la pantalla del clip de la interpretación. En el número 2 dice, den clic en el idioma que desean escuchar, por favor elijan el inglés o el español. Y en el número 3 dice, asegúrense de no seleccionar silenciar a audio original, mute original, audio para poder escuchar a los asistentes que se unan a través del teléfono. Y por favor, si tienen preguntas durante la reunión, utilicen la función de chat para escribir sus preguntas. ¿Está bien? ¿Sí escucharon?
Yes, could everyone hear that?
Sí, yes, yes.
Sí, perfecto. Gracias, Lilia.
No, de nada a ustedes.
Thank you so much. So we will continue on with our housekeeping. So this is just another reminder of our naming conventions. I will move on just for the sake of time because we can do this behind the scenes. So for our virtual meeting etiquette, please make sure to stay muted unless you are speaking. If you're joining by phone only, you can press *6 to mute and unmute yourself. If you have a question or any thoughts that you'd like to share, we ask that you raise your Zoom hand. If you're on the phone and want to participate and speak, you can raise your hand using *9. And another reminder that the residents who are in the stipend program should stay on for at least 75% of our meeting, which is 90 minutes out of our 2 hours together. So this slide is a review of our group agreements. Everyone here has agreed to help achieve the meeting goals by focusing on solutions, opportunities, and productive dialogue. We want to make sure that we are mindful of creating space for everyone here to participate. We ask for everyone to be kind and respectful. It's okay to disagree as long as we do so with respect and empathy. In these meetings, we agreed to stay on point and on time, and that might be a challenge for this evening, but we will do our best to make sure that we end on time without cutting any important conversations short. So next, we agreed to attack the problem, not the person. And finally, we agreed to seek common ground. Building consensus and finding shared values will help us all achieve the best results. So here's our agenda for this evening. We will review the action item tracker as usual, and then move on to a brief update about the annual report. Then our main agenda item for tonight is the truck reroute study update. And our community co-host will be facilitating that section. Then we will move on to standing updates and then start wrapping up the meeting and have public comment. So now we can open it up for some welcoming remarks. I'd love to pass it off to Ryan and Ivanka to get us started. We can start with Ryan.
Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate everybody's patience as we worked through those few issues. And I definitely also want to thank Ivanka for working with us in tonight's meeting, and also thank the others that are involved in the presentations and that are here to share with us tonight. I also do want to take this opportunity to remind everybody that it's National Hispanic Heritage Month from September 15th through next month. And I think it's an important time to reflect on all the contributions that the Hispanic community had on our success as a nation, and the importance that they've played in helping us to get where we are. So want to remind everybody about that. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Ivanka. Thanks.
Thanks, Ryan. Good evening, everybody. I'm glad to be your co-host. My main reminder to anyone on this Zoom call tonight to remember is that it's a community steering committee meeting. As a co-host, I'm no different than any of you sitting on here as part of the residents and the environmental justice team. So speak up, there's no wrong question. And also for our agenda, Liz, can you go back to the slide for the agenda on the very end, standing updates? I think, no, wait. Oh, yes, standing updates. We will go over just the regular updates of the normal subcommittees and the things that we've been working on. But if there's anything else that the community would like to share, I think that's a good time to put that in there. I had one update that I wanted to give that of just to let people know about. And so I will be putting one in there about the date and time.
No. Hold on, let me lower this volume.
Can I see you?
No, I have my camera.
Anyways, welcome everybody, and thank you for coming out tonight. And like I said, speak up. This is our meeting, the community's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we'll be sure to add your update to the agenda as well. So moving on to our next agenda item, we, as usual, spend some time going over the action item tracker. The Air District does a lot of work to continuously make updates to this tracker that is available to you all online. The point is to ensure that your voices are being heard and that you see that progress is being made towards implementing your suggestions. So as Eric provides updates, please feel free to ask for clarification or make any modifications. And I think just to note that as Eric finishes up, we'll also hear a quick update from Brian Dodds on the Clean Air Rooms program before moving to the next agenda item. So I'll pass it off to Eric.
Thank you, Liz. Yes, let's get this going. Share my screen. All right. Can everybody see my screen correctly? Awesome. Go back to the top. All righty. So these are some of the action items that are in progress from our last meeting. You all came up with an idea, or we spoke about an idea about our 50th CSC meeting and how to enjoy it. During an agenda setting meeting, the CSC members recommended discussing ISR, or the indirect source rule, for our October meeting. And then we'd like to share highlights or any feedbacks or any improvements, reflections on our past meetings prior to the 50th. So on our next item, the Air District will update the community on status on FUSD air filtration and CERC funds. So we came up with to provide an update on our status for purchasing standalone units during the September meeting. So on to our next. The Air District will specify on potential allocations of funds for infrastructure costs versus the cost of buses for implementation of the SERP. So the Air District will provide an update on this item during the CSC meeting. On our next item, so this is an item for our city planning process to impact the AB 617 Fresno boundaries, and will research out to city and county officials. The Air District is working with the city of Fresno to schedule the next land use subcommittee meeting. And I will move down to our complete. Alrighty. So for our complete action items, so we needed volunteers. The district has received several volunteers additional to the CSC members for our air monitoring and outreach committee to review materials. The Air District staff, FESD staff, and interested CSC members met to discuss the air filtration program. So the Air District met with FESD staff to discuss the air filtration program. So if you'd like to reach out, please do so. Our meeting was on the 7/20. The video can be found in this link, and I will post it after. And now our next item, the Air District will review wildfire recommendations on flyers to ensure that they have the most up-to-date. So we've already updated our flyers as per the CSC recommendations, and we have translated that to Punjabi. The Air District is launching the Clean Air Rooms program, and they are actively searching for residents to participate. So the Air District reached out to the CSC residents regarding the interest in Clean Air Rooms programs. Pilot programs is now a capacity in the Fresno County. Develop an outreach strategy for schools to be notified about the extension of the RFP. The Air District developed a postcard mailer with available SERP funding for schools. We will plan to send out at the end of September. For our last one, the Air District will email CSC to solicit interest in forming a new residential air filtration subcommittee. So the first air filtration and residential subcommittee will meet on Monday, the 26th at 4 p.m. Thank you, everybody. And I'll go ahead and post that link shortly after. I'll pass it on to you, Brian.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. So one of Eric's updates was on our Clean Air Rooms program. Some of you may have participated in the program. It's where residents of Valley disadvantaged communities can get an air filter system and one replacement filter essentially free of charge through the Air District. Eric's update mentioned that the program was at capacity, and that was true. However, we've recently gone through a process, and there are actually 17 additional air filters that we can provide to Fresno residents. I'm going to drop a link to our program in the chat, but we would encourage certainly any of the 617 Community Steering Committee residents who may have not participated to participate, or reach out to any of your fellow residents, colleagues in the Fresno area, and they can apply as well. So like I said, we have 17 units. It'll be first come, first serve. You can apply through the website link, and it's very simple. There's some basic information we'll collect, and to document residency and eligibility for the program, we ask for some sort of utility bill to go along with that. And happy to answer any questions you might have in the chat throughout the meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you both. Are there any questions before we move on?
Yes, I do have a question. How many of the units were available initially?
Good question, Dr. Curry. I'm going to look it up here in just 1 second, and I'll drop it in the chat for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I think if anyone has any other questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. We'll move on to our next agenda item. And I will pass it off to Ryan, who will give us an update on the South Central Fresno AB 617 annual report, which is a really important moment for you all to engage.
Excuse me, I hate to interrupt you, but those of us with vision issues currently, I'm having a really hard time reading anything in the chat. So when you refer stuff to the chat, I'm not able to obtain that information.
Thank you for letting me know. Yeah, thank you for letting me know. I'll make sure to read anything that is put in the chat out loud so that folks, even those who are on the phone who can't see the chat, can still be involved.
Yeah, so I can provide an update or answer Dr. Curry's question. So the allocation for Fresno County was 297 total units, residential air filters. In regards to the annual report, we definitely took the feedback that the steering committee members have provided to us in the past about, all sorts of different suggestions on how to improve that report to be more reflective of the thoughts and feelings of the community steering committee members, to make the reports more understandable, more relatable to a larger audience. And so we definitely have been made changes to the report to reflect that. The goal is to get the report to all the CSC members by the end of next week at the latest. We also plan on having it up on our website by October 1st, which we're required to. We look forward to getting more feedback from all of you. And if you have any ideas and suggestions on the information that is in the report, look forward to hearing it in our October meeting. From there, it would then be presented to our board at our November meeting, just as a process wise. So if anybody has any questions on that, happy to answer those.
Any questions for Ryan? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So I think we can move on to our next agenda item, which is the truck reroute study update. And for that, I am happy to pass it off to our co-host Ivanka.
Hi, everybody. A few weeks ago, we were able to have the
Testing.
Can you hear me okay? Okay. We had the invitation of the subcommittee truck reroute steering committee members were invited to the truck reroute study kickoff meeting of the city. And at that meeting, IBI and KP Associates gave the overview of the scope of work, of what's to come for the engagement and really the process that will be followed for the truck study. There weren't that many of us from the steering committee that joined that. And I just want to say that it was really overloaded by a lot of unexpected outside agencies outside of the city of Fresno and surrounding cities and agencies that were at this meeting. And it did feel very heavy related that was not community related. And so if there's any of you that are CSC members that found this CERT measure to be of importance, we do need you to join these meetings, because my first impression of it was that it was a, as usual, truck study public works process. And it was totally forgotten that the reason that a truck study even made it this far is based in the fact that it was an emission reductions measure. Our city has not had a truck study for a very long time. And the truck routes have been as status quo because it was not interfering with other agencies. It is interfering with the impacts of the community members. And I think that needs to be key and remembered, that going forward in this process, the reason why there was a lot of time spent before it got to the kickoff point is that steering committee members wanted to make sure that there was true community engagement. So this is a reminder to my fellow steering committee members that we do need you to be involved. Even if up until now you didn't think you were going to be a part of that subcommittee, I'm asking that you are, because I can do report backs. Anybody from our subcommittee can do report backs to this space. However, we need to be upfront and center as community members, or else from that initial kickoff meeting, it will be a status quo process of a public agency process. And I'm not on here to be negative. I do want everyone that's on this call that is of a public agency space to hear what I'm saying, because that is not where a truck study originated from. If you look at the Southwest Fresno specific plan, and Dr. Curry can get my years of processing and how long it took, correct? But when that process was really going through the two-year vetting process by community members, 2017, 2018, maybe a little bit before then, one of the main pieces of all that work was that community members of Southwest Fresno, which is part of 617, wanted to see that heavy-duty truck stop running through their communities. And right now, after that first meeting, it was laid out very clearly to me that that specific plan, which had called for truck rerouting studies since that many years ago, it did not come into fruition. It has not been given funding, even though that was part of the next steps of the implementation of that specific plan. It's not coming into fruition until this community of the 617 space made sure that it was uplifted and got funding through the 617 and combined with city dollars. So let's not forget that the reason and how this really came to be was based in community. And we know that our city wants to completely move forward with industrial development only, without a lot of thought to the community members and the communities that are being under attack through that planning. And this initial kickoff invited Fresno Council of Governments, which includes meaning everybody outside of the city of Fresno, which means they want to make sure that they are aware that the truck routes within the city of Fresno can impact their truck routes of their cities. And so, of course, transportation is all linked. However, I can easily see that the community voice will be lost and it needs to be uplifted. I really want to also make sure that we, as this steering committee, wanted to make sure that the health analysis is not just a side piece. It needs to be running parallel and guiding this truck study. It is not just supposed to be, well, we looked into that data and sort of included it in our recommendations. No, it is running. And the reason this steering committee wanted to have a health analysis that is running parallel to this truck study is because we are having to pull on all the sciences to get those in public agencies to believe the science, because for too long, the community members are not being heard when we say industry is killing us. Industry is killing our community members. And so that is the importance of that health study, so that you don't get to just question what community members have been saying is, oh, they're just being over dramatic, right? Oh, it's really not affecting people of color any more than anybody else. No, the science is going to tell you the truth. And so that health analysis is not just one piece of data. It is running parallel to this truck study. I hope I've made myself clear that it was really disheartening and concerning that an initial kickoff would, I would say 80% agency, maybe 20% public voice. And that is not how this truck study has come into fruition. This city would not be doing a study had it not been initiated by all the work dating back to the Southwest Pacific Plan and wanting to see a truck study implemented. When you are looking at what data you are going to include for recommendations, that 2-year process vetted the recommendations for truck studies. So that must be included because it gives you the information of what community believe will be helpful to them. And one other piece is that our city of Fresno, don't forget, is in a settlement with, under the North Point settlement of South Central, that they will commit to making sure that they do not include a truck study on Central Avenue. So while you're bringing in all these outside agencies of other cities to play a part in what they need from our city of Fresno truck study, this city also has commitments to those residents of South Central too. And I'll stop there. If steering committee members, if you have any questions, if I've said something that is not clear, please feel free to ask me, Dr. Curry, or anyone else on the call. I can't see the whole list that have been involved and prioritized a truck study. If there's anything else that you feel needs to be added to those comments, please feel free to do so. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ivanka, and thanks for covering so much of the historical aspect of how the community really pushed for a truck rerouting study. And you're correct in acknowledging that the work began before the Southwest Pacific Plan, which was adopted in 2017. It actually started in 2013 with just organizers on the ground speaking directly with community members. And so it was a very grassroots effort. It was very much grounded in hearing what community identified as priorities. And those two issues that rose to the top, the placement of industrial sites in West Fresno and the need to stop excessive truck traffic. And these were looked at in part because people understood that their health was at risk. And so as much as we know the asthma prevalence in West Fresno drives a lot of emergency room visits, we know that our children are developing asthma at earlier rates than previously. And so this was very much a push not only to look at the truck and excessive pollution burden and what those sources are, but it was also to acknowledge that we needed to understand better what the health impacts are. And so these are not separate issues, they really are connected. And that's why we really push for the health study along with the review of the truck routes. So I just echo what Ivanka has already said. It's very much a community priority. It remains a community priority. And unfortunately, I know I was not able to be at the meeting because of overscheduling, but I know that it remains an interest that is high on the list of concerns for families with kids, families with older people who are suffering from breathing disorders, and just the community at whole. So we intend to see this actually provide information and data that will actually move the needle forward, keeping health in the center and making sure that our community is respected and acknowledged.
Thank you, Dr. Curry. I see Lisa's hand. Go ahead, Lisa.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity outside of public comment to comment on this issue. What I'm very worried about, I have a great concern about this truck reroute study is the ongoing development of the interchanges that Caltrans is developing along this area, as well as the ongoing changes in land use, both ministerial and regarding zoning changes within the footprint and within the areas that would impact the truck reroute. I'm very, very concerned. I'm very concerned that the truck reroute is the city is trying to justify more development in areas that they do not need more development in because of the environmental impacts. And I can't tell you guys how concerned I am with the zoning proposal changes and the administrative changes that they're trying to push through, and how they will impact not only the community short term with the truck reroute, but also the long-term health ramifications. And I also have very grave concerns about the Caltrans design. Even though they say they're designing for safety, I can see expansion of lanes as well. So thank you.
Are there any other comments? I don't see any other hands raised. I'm not too sure if it's Jill or Scott that wanted to respond or or if it's Catherine for any updates on your side of the truck study.
Yeah, I can respond. Jill Gormley, I'm the Traffic Operations and Planning Manager with the City of Fresno and our Public Works Department. And, just real brief history of how we got to this point with the consultants that we have. Last October, we worked with the steering committees to choose a proposal, the scope of work, and a firm, which is IBI Group with Catherine Padilla heading up the public outreach portion of that. We approved the contract for the services in April with our city council. And we did have our first kickoff meeting on September 1st. There are different stakeholder groups. Our first kickoff meeting, it probably did seem heavy on the agency side. For some of those agencies, that was the first time they were maybe hearing about this study or had a chance to hear more in depth about it. So, it was Caltrans, the county was in the room. It might have felt like there was other cities in the room, but they represented school districts that are in the boundary of the AB 617 area. For example, Sanger, their school district is in the boundary, and there may have been people from Sanger in the room. There are multiple opportunities going forward. We will have community groups, and the next plan for the project is to develop a community outreach plan, which the steering committee and the other groups will have opportunities to review and comment on. And what we're looking for from the group right now, I think an email went out, is a list of stakeholders, community members that would be important to this process to help us, inform both the health study and the truck reroute study as well. We do have the consultants from the IBI Group and Catherine Padilla here to answer questions if there are any.
Thanks, Jill. I guess in the request for stakeholders, if you could share, Catherine, with this group, what are some of those specifics that instead of just putting it off on the community members to ask for those stakeholders, what are your plans for just the overall plan for getting the word out to communities as a whole?
The overall approach would be to, now that I'm listening to you, I'm thinking our overall approach would be to identify stakeholders throughout the area. And then, and I'm talking about different grassroots leaders, community-based organizations, and typically we work with them as well. And so we'd be looking for stakeholders in Southwest, in North.
Catherine, I'm not hearing a word you're saying. I'm hearing everything that you're saying in Spanish, and I haven't changed anything. So I think we might have another technical difficulty that needs to be figured out real quick.
Something did automatically switch, Lisa, and when I went
Ivanka, I can't hear you as well.
Wow.
I can hear you, Ivanka.
Yeah, I'm only hearing English. Reina, is there anything on your end?
Excuse me, sorry. Can you guys hear me? I know I'm in the Spanish channel, but we cannot hear any of the interpreters.
Okay, I'm getting a message to end interpretation, so we're going to try just starting it over.
Vamos a tratar de comenzar nuevamente.
Gracias, mil disculpas. Parece ser que se nos cruzaron los cables.
Okay. So I've enabled it again. We're good? Okay. Thank you for letting us know.
Ivanka, just for clarity, are you asking
Hey,
what
real
the act?
quick, Liz, it seems like the language interpretation may be switched. Like if you selected English, it sounds like you're getting the Spanish translation and vice versa.
Interesting. Okay. So right now, I have Reina in the English to Spanish channel. Is that right for Linguística?
Seems to be working now. Sounds like there was a delay in updating the process. So thanks everyone for your patience. The world is telling us to use less computer time potentially. So thank you all.
So Ivanka,
Yes.
if I can just clarify, so what I'm thinking is you're asking me what activities would be involved, what outreach activities would be involved. So the first one would be stakeholder identification, and that's analysis, making sure we have grassroots leaders and community-based organizations, and identifying all of the people who had been involved in previous efforts and who should be involved in new efforts from both the North Side, Southwest, Tower District, even stakeholders throughout the city, including the dairy and ag business. So those are all community stakeholders. And we take a systems approach, meaning we look at all of the stakeholders and understand each of their issues, because we don't want to solve one problem and create others. So creating that systems understanding is important. Activities would include beginning with stakeholder interviews, small focus group discussions where we clarify what we believe are the issues, what we've heard, what their needs are. And you give us a great starting point with the study that was previously done. So we'll confirm that those are still issues with each of the groups. And then from that, we'll develop also a community advisory group. I think you heard about that. That's where we look again for stakeholders throughout the stage, throughout the all the different areas and segments. And then we'll look at creating a technical advisory committee, which would consist of the people who can help serve as sort of a peer review. Some of the agencies that you saw may be that. It's up to the city to decide. And then from that, we would also be conducting pop-up events. That's before we go out with any kind of recommendations, once we have a sense of the issues and concerns and needs and preliminary recommendations, maybe very, very draft. We would go out to what we believe is pop-up events, and that would be events that are community-wide, that draw the greatest range of people from all walks of life, intergenerational. And we use interactive activities to collect input from that. And then we'll also do stakeholder, well, it'll be an online survey, but we'll deliver hard copies too of surveys. So it's a questionnaire approach where we, before we move too far in recommendations tracks, we do that. But we also use those community advisory groups as kind of a feedback loop at every point as well. So in a nutshell, that's kind of the overview.
Thank you, Catherine. Is that clear to everyone? Kind of how the process, the community engagement plan is not completed yet. That is where the stage that we are actually at. So we still are at the forefront of this, and make sure if this is a to make sure that if this is one of your priority certs, that you stay involved and do our own diligent outreach. But I just wanted to make sure I asked that question to Catherine, so you know what is their process, that it's not just all on us as well.
Yeah, I had a quick question if I could. Given that the burden is not equally distributed in terms of the impacts of truck traffic, I'm curious how you're going to weight the fact that those who are most impacted, how you're going to weight their concerns over the concerns of someone in North Fresno who likely is not impacted at all. So what's the formula that you've already put together or that you're willing to create that acknowledges that the burden is not equally shared and that those who are the most impacted have the most, need to have the most say-so in the way that this, not only the plan, but also the eventual product is produced and provided to the city?
I'm going to ask Mike to weigh in on that and the city as well, but that would involve developing evaluative criteria before we'd move too far along the lines of recommendations. So just to clarify, at each of the points in the technical study before any milestones reached, there's engagement. And,
yeah, I think I'm sorry, I think the point is that since the burden is not equally distributed, what is the process or what is the acknowledgement at the forefront on the beginning of the process to acknowledge that the burden isn't equally shared and that those who are the most impacted are going to have some way to tip the balance so that their voices are not lost in the shuffle of someone in North Fresno saying something that is completely contrary to the people who are the most impacted? What's the plan to address that, or how is that going to be baked into the cake?
well,
Yeah,
just for Mike, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I could chime in. Mike Arizabal, IBI Group, we're the prime consultant on this effort. That's going to mainly fall into task 5. We do a prioritization matrix, so we do a scoring and weighting factor. And we change that on a project by project basis. And those scoring and weighting and different factors all really come from all the outreach that we've gone to date, right? So we may start at a certain point where a certain community will be assigned a higher weight or factor, right? So that when you're scoring these different mitigation measures and different recommendations and improvements, that'll ultimately get a higher score. Now, through the outreach process, we're looking at, hey, there's another community here that's been, outlooked or overlooked, and we aren't really seeing them kind of move the needle on any kind of improvements. Then we'll want to assign a higher score for that particular community. All of this is subject to review from the groups that Catherine had mentioned, the technical steering committee, the community advisory group. We want to run through multiple feedback loops so that we could get down, and nail down a final scoring process before any kind of implementation plan is realized. I hope that answers your question, Doctor.
Yeah, I would just say that it becomes very hard to encourage and to recruit people to be a part of the community outreach strategy if there isn't an acknowledgement and if there isn't a way to guarantee that their voices are not, that this is not a check the box and that you've been able to say we did community outreach. But we can't recruit people if we're not authentic in what we're trying to do. And if the most impacted people are not centered in this work, it's a challenge to encourage and recruit anyone based on the idea that they would come and spend their time and not actually have any real say-so or really any real outcome that is preferable for them. So I think it's important to be able to say how you're going to address that at the front end and encourage and invite people to help strategize about how you will center those voices. Otherwise, it will be seen as an inauthentic community outreach effort, and it will not be received and not be participated in the way that you would want.
If I can just describe how we worked through that issue in Wilmington. We did focus primarily on the neighborhood first, most impacted. And when we did stakeholder interviews, we began conducting in-depth discussions with maybe 4 or 5 people, well, in this case in Spanish and then some in English. We also did some with the business community. So we took that first understanding of what the issues and concerns were from the lived experience, and then from that spread out further. So that's where we began, actually. And people are living and experiencing that on a daily basis. But the outreach plan will describe that.
And if I could just clarify one thing, Ivanka, I did hear you on you're disappointed in kind of who our members were of the kickoff. Just a note that that was our kind of high level takeoff of the project, and we are just now starting this outreach engagement analysis. So you'll be seeing, you know, how we lay that all out. And as Catherine mentioned, we talk about Wilmington a lot. Wilmington, if you're not familiar with it, in Southern California, it's a community that's 2 miles away from the second busiest port in the nation. So we conducted and led that freight mitigation study. That study also included the likes of Caltrans, City of LA, Southern California Association of Governments. So all these other, you know, entities that didn't necessarily reside within the community, but we needed them in order to buy off on some of the recommendations that we did make, because, you know, technically, from a technical standpoint, they need to be able to, you know, bless certain work, not necessarily input what those recommendations would be, but to just review it and provide that peer review on whether technically it's a feasible improvement or not. So just a note on that, Ivanka.
I know that, thank you for that, Mike. I do know that as we dig into the engagement, you as the technical group and the engagement group consultants will learn more of the history, and I'll just be blunt, the backwardsness of our city. And I say that with embarrassment because this is my city too. And the processes that a lot of people of color are still enduring because of a lot of, as Dr. Curry just said, that lack of authenticity, and the checkmark box process has been our strategy here for a very long time. And so I will remain hopeful that with the work that you've done in a bigger metropolis than the city of Fresno, that can really make this a successful process in moving the needle in environmental justices for the Fresnans of South Central Fresno, South Fresno as a whole. So thank you.
We do have a question in the chat that I'll read out. Dr. Curry asked, are trucks suddenly going to be routed through North Fresno instead of West Fresno?
I could answer that. I don't have an answer for that. That's part of what the 18-month study is going to look at, is all the different options of what we could do, whether that's treating or improving the existing routes, or if we are going to be able to eliminate any existing or future proposed routes. So, you know that the truck route, I think it was last updated in 2005. So we'll be investigating, you know, where the existing routes are, what are the truck patterns, the origin destinations, and try to improve it onto that.
Lisa, I still see your hand up. I don't know if it forgot to be put down or if you have another comment. Anyone else?
I'm sorry, I forgot to turn off my mute, go figure. Sorry about that. I just want to piggyback on some comments from Dr. Curry. How are the consultants? I understand they're going to go out and talk to people, but how are they going to convince people from just an interview to action and participation? And I also agree with Dr. Curry that the disproportionate amount of impact is in South Fresno. You know, you see delivery trucks in North Fresno. You don't see the number of trucks and the type of trucks, you know, coming out of Amazon in River Park. You just don't see it. Even at Fresno State, you just don't see the numbers. So as you're building these stakeholders and advisory community members, and I understand it has to reflect Fresno, I am also very concerned that it may lean toward business and pro-business interest and not really the community interest, the people that live here. I understand the need for business, but I really must emphasize the need for community and community health in this truck study because of the impact, because of the air quality, because that is why we're here. So I really would like to know, how do you get from an interview model that's going to justify your work to actually having people participate and value their time and listen to them and make sure their input is more valid than a business owner who's there for their net profit? Thank you.
I could start, and then Catherine, you could kind of fill in the blanks. That's a great question, Lisa. What we do is we tie our interviews and our outreach to our technical milestones and our technical scope of work, so that some of the initial, outreach events are more on listening on what the problems are, and we'll separate out, businesses versus residents versus other groups. Try to identify what the problem areas are and what their perspective is on what the issues are in the area. And then we reference Wilmington a lot, but we feed a lot of that initial impact, that initial input into our preliminary mitigations and our preliminary recommendations, so that once we get that second feedback loop and residents are starting to see, hey, they're actually building these recommendations based on what we said at this first kind of listening session, that's able to get them catched on into the project and get them hooked on to, okay, they are actually listening. There are actually alternatives, that are making its way into the study that reflect the concerns that we have. And Catherine, you could fill in as necessary.
I think just briefly, part of what we do is also a branding and marketing effort. So that's where I think probably we do need the help of CAG, a community advisory group, to help us come up with a tagline that means something to people about what this study's about, coming up with branding images that relate to Fresno, and again, the aspirations for this study. A lot of marketing goes into this, and I believe it's important. The other aspect is we don't expect people to come to our community meetings necessarily. I think it's best to go out to community-wide events and gather input like that. It doesn't allow for quite a deep discussion, but it certainly gets to the key points and the salient points and what's at stake for the community. And they'll get a chance to provide input that way.
Thanks, Catherine. Anyone else have any comments or concerns? I felt that it was better when we were setting the agenda to just have open conversation from the public as well. So if you're in the general public and in listening to this, can you raise your hand or make comments now while we are in this conversation, and not necessarily wait till the end like we normally do for updates? How are we doing on time, Liv? I forgot how long we were staying on this topic.
We are good on this until 6:55.
Okay, thanks.
I see Ryan has his hand up, Ivanka.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Thanks, Ivanka, and thanks everybody for the conversation. And I guess what I'm hearing from Catherine and from Mike, it's kind of the request is really kind of speaks to what's the request of Dr. Curry, Ivanka, and others and Lisa on how to make sure that we're getting some of the people from those communities. And I think that's why the community steering process is so important, and the involvement of the residents and the community-based organizations to help kind of steer them in the direction of people that may be interested or may have the ability to participate in these various processes and provide really great input, and connecting with Catherine and others. I think that's going to be really important in this process. And I don't know what the best way to for them to connect with you on that, Catherine, or so if you have any suggestions for that, I think that'd be great.
We are inviting your assistance in working with the stakeholder analysis. That means identification of key groups. We have begun that effort, but we don't have, obviously, your lived experience in working with these groups. So that would be very helpful. So that would be a first start. And then from that, we'll develop an outreach plan and talking points and key messages and branding and all that. That also specifies the activities. I do want to take a moment and introduce Javier Cibaja, my project manager, who's also be working with me, and he's completely bilingual.
I was about to interject on that. Thank you for the lead-in. I'm on the ground type of person. I do directly outreach with individuals in the street fairs, and I hand out surveys, and you get many responses that are annotated, that typify. For example, there are communities that we are highly aware of the study, and you will hear why they support or why they disagree, but their awareness is high, and we do analyze that. Others will have no idea what you're talking about, so we design boards to simplify what the study is about, and we put their communities. You're here a map, and this is where the truck route goes now, and these where other options may be as you go into design. So you basically walk them through the process of what's going on in their communities. So localize their experience, so they basically can articulate the impact or the benefit to their community of the study. So I'm a former reporter. So basically, you start with informal conversations, and eventually you get to know the level of support awareness and the benefit or negative impacts they might receive by this project. So it's an ongoing conversation, and being aware of different communities. So we focus in communities, and we basically understand that the profile demographics of these communities as opposed to the other one.
Thank you. Scott, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Ivanka. Just wanted to just chime in and emphasize from the city of Fresno's perspective that this is definitely no ordinary study or run-of-the-mill public works type studies. Just kind of as a refresher reminder, the scope of work for the consultant team is one we spent a lot of time on with the subcommittee, and then came before the whole steering committee. Really heavy emphasis, very, very strong goal for community engagement. We see, as a city team, we see that's going to take a lot of work, really heavy lifting, because we know we even have some different groups in the community who, a couple of groups who've suggested things that are contradictory to one another, right? One group says, hey, get the trucks off of, for example, let's get off of Jensen or north, west of 41. Let's push them down to Central. And a group who says, let's get the trucks off Central and let's put them on North. So, there's a little bit of, it needs to be a cohesive planning effort, and that community engagement will be really important. And some good work sessions. As to the other public agencies, that to me, that's necessary, but not intended to dominate the discussion at all. Very heavy with, our goal is really to get a lot of community input, a lot of community engagement. But yes, we do need County of Fresno there, the city. We can't just eliminate truck route and say, go drive on the county roads. We've got to work that out together. And likewise, Caltrans will have a good, anticipate a team there, someone from transportation planning, someone from traffic operations looking at that if there are changes that affect just how, the volume or type of traffic that goes through different facilities. And yeah, so we look forward to it. Look forward to a good process. So I want to thank everybody who's involved, and by all means, this is a chance to say who needs to participate, and yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Thanks, Scott. Lisa, I see your hand up.
I forgot the 2 questions I wanted to ask. Does the Air District currently have a list of community groups and activists within the AB 617, since we've been, doing this, since you guys have been doing 617 for a couple of years now? And is it available for review by the committee? That way you guys aren't duplicating work. The second thing is, who okays these advisory groups and focus groups to make sure that they're balanced? Is it the city? Is it going to come back to AB 617 to make sure that it's balanced? Or, because I see that's the point in time where things might begin to be lopsided. Thank you.
I can answer the first part of that. And yes, we do have a list and we would be happy to share it.
And I'll tackle the community group question. There's going to be opportunities for everybody to, as we go along with each of the tasks, whether it's assembling these groups, we want to make sure that we have the right people in the room. So we're going to put together the lists or combine all the lists that we get and make sure that we are reflecting the community that needs to be reflective in reaching out to those members. We can't get everyone. We don't want to leave anybody behind. So, we're going to do our best with input from everybody. So there'll be opportunities to provide input, on the lists, as well as other tasks and deliverables throughout the project.
Thank you for that. I don't see any other hands raised. Are there any other comments, concerns, questions? If not, I'll kick it back over to Liz. Thank you.
I have one more question. Are we able to coordinate with these other city entities what might be in the pipeline that we may not be familiar with? So industries, projected projects that are coming forth where there will be truck traffic that's engaged, would we have any awareness of some of those? Would you have access to that information so that we would be a little bit more proactive in the planning? And I guess this is a combination of us having more information and better communication around land use decisions and sort of what those where those locations are currently being considered and how that truck traffic might impact this particular effort.
So I could take that. So task 3 in our scope of work is a comprehensive existing conditions analysis, and what you're speaking of kind of filters into that. So we're trying to gain as much on the ground conditions as possible from all sources. We also coordinating with UC Merced, making sure that we're not reinventing the wheel with any of our data requests or any data. Want to make sure that we are mindful of any overlap that's out there. But we're going to be doing an extensive literature review and data synthesis of everything, every planning document that's out there, every planned, programmed, or funded project that may be coming online. That's going to be a part of our analysis on the various scenarios that we're looking at. So there'll be an existing scenario and then what the future build out looks like. And there may be some differences in our recommendations based on that specific land use mix that's on the books.
Excuse me, this is Lisa. So will you be asking for information from the State Office of Planning and what is it? Is OPR?
So OPR, they are doing the SB 743 stuff with VMT. Any data that's relevant to our study, we'll be requesting and trying to obtain. So even accident and collision data, the California Air Resources Board, their community air monitoring plan will be referencing that. So anything that's valuable towards, how could we achieve different improvements, it's on the table for us.
And how far back are you going to be requesting data from them? Because as you know, some projects take years to build.
We typically look at whatever the latest plans are, but if there is a plan that's 5 years old, but it's relevant and it's still pending, or it's something that will be for sure going to be implemented, then we'll definitely take a look at that. But if it's just a study that's kind of a visionary study that doesn't really have, it may not be implemented or anything like that, that's probably something that we're not going to be addressing as part of this project.
Yeah, I was actually thinking of more proposed sites for additional industrial sites in its AB 617, whether or not you would be coordinating or have that information from planning department or other city agencies, and that if that would be if that would be shared with you in a way that you could actually use it to understand what's already in development, and whether or not you'd be able to share that with us.
Yeah, we typically request that. So that's like our cumulative project list or our general plan build out, anything like that. So what the land uses are proposed to be, if there's any changes to the land use, that's something that we request from the planning department. And I'll let the city chime in on how that would be available to share.
I think through the process, we'll share whatever information is public and that we are able to share. I do want to say that there comes a point where we're going to have to say this is the date that the study reflects. So if the date's April 1st and we get something on May 1st, it may not be included in that, because we can't keep chasing projects that are coming in, or we will never finish this, the study. But we will do our best to incorporate anything that comes up in that time period that would inform the study.
Thanks everyone for a really good conversation on this. And I'll kick it over to you, Liv.
Thank you. And yes, thank you so much to everyone who joined this meeting and everyone who asked really great questions. And we're still on time for the evening. So I will move us along to standing updates. We will hear about subcommittee and agency updates to ensure that the steering committee is informed of all of the latest activities. As we move through these, I'll be calling on the co-leads from each of these subcommittees or agencies to provide the update. As a reminder, the update should be around 4 minutes. If possible, please hold your questions until the end of the update or post them in the chat for us to read when it is time. And also just a reminder to please speak slowly for our interpreters. So first we have our land use subcommittee and updates. I think, is that Ryan?
Yeah, I got it, Liz. So as you heard earlier from Eric's action item update, we are looking to schedule a next a meeting in the near term future. So that's the update for that.
Thank you, Ryan. Any questions or comments? Okay. So next we have an update from Caltrans. David Padilla. Oh, we can't hear you. It says you're unmuted, but maybe David, as you sort out the audio issues, we can move to the trees subcommittee and then come back to Caltrans. Okay, so we'll move forward with the trees subcommittee. I think this is back to Ryan.
It is. Thanks, Liz. So in regards to the trees subcommittee, as everybody knows, the RFP has been posted. There's still 2 weeks left on that. So we're looking forward to having some proposals received to share out with you and to discuss once that closes. And so that's the update for that.
Thank you, Ryan. Any questions about that? Okay. David, are you, did you manage to? Oh, yes, go ahead.
If you could just, sorry, because it's my first time at this meeting, if you could just clarify what RFP stands for?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, Jessica. I know we oftentimes get bogged down in like inside lingo. And so an RFP is a request for proposal. It's a formal process that we have to undergo as a public agency to make interested individuals aware of opportunities, in this case, a vegetated barrier urban greening opportunity. So it lists the criteria that have to be included in any proposals that we receive. And we worked extensively with the community steering committee members on developing those on developing the RFP itself, and again the criteria that we're looking for as part of those projects.
Yeah, that was a great question and a great reminder for us all to break down those acronyms. So if there are no other questions for Ryan, I think we can move to our Caltrans update with David. We'll give it another try.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Yeah, I did receive an update specifically to the South Fresno 99 interchanges at North and American Avenues. This project will reconstruct the split interchanges at Cedar and North Avenue and the half interchange at American interchanges. The project is currently in the environmental clearance stage. Caltrans released a draft environmental document for public circulation and comment last year. The project development team has selected the modified partial cloverleaf, which is the L9 at North Avenue, as the alternative to recommend as the preferred alternative. The diversion diamond is no longer being considered at North Avenue. Caltrans is pursuing a hybrid alternative at American Avenue that encompasses roundabouts at the ramp intersections. Caltrans has met with.
Excuse me, could you slow down a little? Because I'm trying to write notes and you're going
sure.
too fast. Thank you.
Sure. Did you want me to back up or should I continue?
Oh, continue, but slow down.
Okay, no problem. Caltrans has met with the South Central Fresno AB 617 communities and residents of the surrounding communities. They have expressed concerns about the potential for increased truck traffic and degrading air quality. Caltrans, City of Fresno, and County of Fresno held a community meeting on August 31st of this year in Calawa to discuss the project and hear community concerns. Final environmental document is targeted for November 2022. Right-of-way acquisition, utility relocation will commence after the environmental document is final and after the freeway agreement has been executed. Construction is anticipated to begin late 2024. However, utility relocation and right-of-way acquisition do present risk to the schedule. And that's the latest updates I got for the South Fresno 99 interchange project.
Okay. Thanks for that, David. The flip side of this, let's back up to the community meetings. And in the community meetings that were heard, David did say there were concerns. But to be clear, for District 6, I don't know how they're going to actually address the concerns, because as you just heard, yeah, we heard concerns, but we're moving forward with this project. There has been, David, no response to how you responded. There's really been no response. I'll tell you what the response was in the meeting. Thanks for telling us your concerns that you do not want to see, and community is opposing this. However, you're not everybody. That was the response, is we're still moving forward this, and you community members, thanks for letting us now know. And this is what we refer to as the check mark box strategies that public agencies use in communities of color. We heard you, but we're still moving forward with the project. So at this point, there has been no discussion of further than that. Yeah, we heard you, but we're still moving forward with the project. Yeah, we heard you, and we understand that this is inside of a 617 community, but we're still moving forward with a project that's going to expand 2 lanes to possibly 4 just on North Avenue alone. Yeah, we heard you, but we don't believe that this is impacting any disadvantaged community. Oh, my bad. We'll fix that in the final EIR, even though we stated in the initial draft environmental impact report that there's no disadvantaged communities that will be impacted. We'll fix the language. But do you see the problem here, everyone? On one hand, we are in this space, 617, trying to improve the process, reducing emission reductions in an area that is overburdened. And we have at our table Caltrans coming to us, great work that you're working on, but we're going to keep doing this project. So it's going to continue to increase the burden of pollution of heavy duty trucks coming into the South Central Avenue area. So you have North Avenue, you have American Avenue. These are going to be expanded lanes that are going to increase the amount of heavy duty trucks that can come into an area and just roll over the community members that are there. So this is another hot item that in the environmental justice space, we are following closely, because the bottom line is there's no true mitigation measures that you can do. And in this space, as just was reported, they don't even try to mitigate. They're just going to mitigate. They just want to move forward with the project. So I just want you all to know that that little update that you just heard isn't little at all. It's very concerning. It's very concerning for residents of Calawa, Malaga, Southeast Fresno, as well as the residents that live west of the 99 in South Central. All of the majority of which is within the 617 space. So Air District, I don't know who in your departments has followed this. Are you opposing it? Are you standing with community? Or are you just like, okay, Caltrans, you go ahead and do that? Lisa, I see your hand up. Lisa, can you pull your
I'm-
state off?
I'm sorry, I keep forgetting to turn off the mute. In my former life, as many of you know, I was a former associate level environmental planner who specialized in public outreach. And one of the things I know, and I hope David can answer this question, is where's the record of public meeting? Typically, when you meet out with the public, you report out the concerns and there is a meeting report. It is typically done and mandated within 2 weeks of that meeting. So one should be actually available to us. And I don't believe anybody's seen it. I would like to know if it's available, how can we obtain it? How can the committee obtain it? Because I'm just a member of the public now. And how soon can you get that? And why has it not been presented to the AB 617 committee? Furthermore, can you give us an analysis and a breakdown of what the comments were at the meeting? Because typically at these public meetings where you go out, they typically have public comment cards. What did the public comment cards say?
Yeah, Lisa. Yeah, I'll follow up with the project manager. Obviously they've had community outreach, and I'll follow up on the feedback they received. I'm sure it's documented, and I could probably get that back to this committee probably in the next couple of days.
Lisa, I have a question for you. These meetings were done in coordination by the Environmental Justice Coordination of Residents. Is there a requirement? I guess my question to you is there a requirement under the environmental justice requirements that Caltrans should be following, that they do proper outreach? Because the outreach was done off of, oh, you tell us with residents that you think are involved and we'll come to you and meet where you want us to meet. But there was no proper outreach, flyers, mailers into a radius around that project that I know of that was done to residents. David, you can correct me, but from my understanding, you all relied on the coordination of community meetings based off of the environmental justice, us not doing your own work. So to Lisa, my question is there in this process of, if you are doing everything just, is there a process that they are responsible for doing true outreach?
Yes, it is. It is actually up to the environmental planner that is assigned, and the senior approves it. And I believe the senior on this is John Thomas. And what they should have done, knowing that there was this community that is actively wanting this information, especially since we didn't know about the environmental document coming out. And what they're supposed to do is, when they find that there's an outcry from the community, they are to basically get a meeting, get it done. The environmental planner that is writing the document is responsible for finding contacts in the community to outreach. They are also responsible for getting that information out, whether it is they are to do outreach via a press release, a notice in the newspaper. They are to put flyers out if that is necessary. I had one planner who actually put up a table in the middle of a country four-way stop to get the attention of the farming community out there. And she sat out there in 95-degree weather with a little umbrella. So for Caltrans not to be able to do that outreach in Callaway is incredibly shocking to me, that they could not even put up flyers. And also everything is supposed to be presented in Spanish. They're supposed to have Spanish translators there. They're supposed to have handouts in Spanish. They're supposed to have comment cards, both in English and Spanish. They're supposed to have a comment box. The comment box goes to the office the next morning. They open it up, they read through all the comments, they Xerox it off, and the comments then become part of the public meeting record, which is included in their environmental document. If they choose not to do that, then they cannot prove their outreach. It's like a supplemental, but they have to do that. That is what it was mandated when I worked there. And the unit that I was involved with made sure that the standard was met for legal sufficiency, so we would not get sued. And one of my jobs is if I found a community of whether it was color, low income, farmers, business people, I made sure that the planner did the outreach that they needed to, because if not, it came down on me and my boss.
Okay.
So I hope
Thank
that
you.
answers your question.
Yeah, it does. And that, no, that wasn't done. I know that, yes, the information is put online. If you know to go to Caltrans page to know that there's something happening. But if you don't know that, you are like the majority of residents that don't know something's already in process until you see the bulldozers coming out. So, yeah.
Yeah, and just to that note, I do have a distribution list that that I can share of how this project was noticed. So it's got federal agencies, state agencies, the Native American tribes, regional, local agencies, nonprofit interest groups, and the education sector. So it's a list I can share with the committee.
David, there should also be a list, and this is where proficiency comes about, that the Caltrans also can do, I forget the name of it. You can also do a land ownership list and get within a certain area the addresses of the homes and send information and cards, you know, like postcards to residents. Was that done?
I have to do some more digging.
Because that should also be part of the record of the public meeting. Is there also to include the list of who they've actually contacted as well? And if those residents list is not there, then this wasn't a sufficient meeting.
Follow up with that.
Thank you, you guys. And to the Air District, will you be reviewing a project like this and its EIR since it's within the 617 and making comments?
Yeah, I'll definitely follow up with Brian Clements and Mark Montalongo with our permitting department to see whether we have already or if we're putting together comments.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments for David? Okay. Sounds like this is a conversation that we will continue to have in future meetings. So we'll go back to our updates. I think next we're going back to Ryan or Brian.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. Good evening again, everybody.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, Brian. Hold on. I think Lilia has her hand up, so I want to see if she has a question.
Go for it.
Sí, buenas noches nuevamente. Sí, tengo una pregunta. Yo miro la agenda que tiene el proyecto de los árboles. ¿Cómo vamos a trabajar con ese proyecto?
I didn't hear the translation of that.
Me neither.
Está en la agenda. Está en la agenda.
She asked about the trees, guys.
Están los proyectos comunitarios en la última, casi última línea de abajo. O todavía se brincaron.
Oh, we haven't gotten to the subcommittee on trees update. Is that, I think that's what Mika's referring to.
No, I did talk about it briefly, Dr. Ramos.
Oh, yeah, just the update.
Yeah, I know there is going to be a follow-up subcommittee meeting after we close the RFP and hopefully go over the proposals that we received with the steering committee members. And so there should be something going out to the CSC members in the next few weeks.
Thank you, Ryan. I think we can move back to Brian.
Okay. So one of the updates that we have for you this evening is about our burn cleaner measure and program that we have. As you guys might recall, we've had some discussions about that particular measure in the last few months and some of the challenges that might be associated with participating in that program due to the cost of the devices. Last week, our governing board approved increases to the incentives for that particular measure. It was previously $3,000 total for the installation of a natural gas device. That's gone up now to $4,150. So a little over an $1,100 increase for residents. In addition, we raised the incentives for heat pumps from $4,000 to $5,000. We anticipate that will help offset the cost of the devices as they've gone up a little bit over the last few years. And this whole discussion about increasing incentives, really, we owe a lot to the steering committee for raising this to our attention. We listened to your feedback, and we've gone ahead and got those changes incorporated into the program now. So we're currently doing some website updates. We hope to have those all completed by the end of the day, but anyone interested in participating in that program can of course reach out to our grants and incentives team here, and any applications that are received following the 15th, following last Thursday's board approval, are eligible for the increased incentives. Happy to answer any questions that might have on that. And also wanted to mention that it was mentioned earlier, but there's a residential air filtration subcommittee Monday at 4 p.m. for anybody who's interested in participating in that subcommittee as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Are there any questions? Okay. So our last update is from CARB. Oh, Ivanka, did you have a question? Oh, okay. Brian or Jennifer, do you have any updates you'd like to share?
Hi, Liz. Yes, we do have some updates. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. Perfect.
Yes.
So I will go ahead and I'll go over the updates, then I'll just link everything in the chat once I'm done. On September 26th and 27th, the AB 32 Environmental Justice Advisory Committee meeting will take place. The agenda will include updates on the 2022 scoping plan, and they hope to finalize some recommendations during that meeting. So if that's interesting to you or you want to participate, please do attend. Also on September 27th, there is a research seminar focused on the California-wide asthma exacerbations and air pollution levels. So if you're interested in learning what digital GPS inhalers, will tell us about asthma exacerbations from air pollution exposures, please feel free to attend. On October 5th, the Notice of Incentive Program Advisory Group public meeting will meet to consider updates to the Carl Moyer program for on-road heavy-duty vehicles. And let's see, lastly, we have on October 13th, the CARB board meeting to consider the Arvin Lamont SERP will be taking place, and then their annual report will be posted to our website within the next couple days, I believe. So I'll go ahead and I'll link everything. And if anybody has any questions, let me know, and I'll also include my email.
Thank you, Jennifer. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Jennifer. It's a little bit further out, but I did want to add on the date, and I'm just following after you. It's a little further out for the Advanced Clean Fleet. I think that is directly related to a lot of the work we do with 617, the Advanced Clean Fleet rule. That is under review, and that date is October 27th with CARB. And I think that, you know, it's important for us to be following some of these state things that are happening. And this is really important so that we know enough about like transitioning freight trucks to the zero emission vehicles. There are different rules for different types of trucks, and that draft rule has been released with the goal of 100% zero emission transition. And so we just want to make sure that locally residents are aware of that too. And some of those dates that our CARB has are further out than we're kind of hoping for. And if you're wanting more interest or want more information about that, feel free to reach out to me or anybody on CARB. But that Advanced Clean Fleet rule, we want to make sure that people are engaging on October 27th. So it's a little ways out, but thank you.
Thanks, Ivanka. I'll go ahead and I'll include that in the links for everyone. We'll also send these updates to the district, and they can go ahead and send them out via email as well.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Are there any last questions? Yes, go ahead, Dr. Curry.
Thank you. I had two questions. The first one was whether or not the AB 617 committee is aware of the city council agenda item for our Elm Avenue rezone. This is a rezone application that came before us probably around a year and a half ago. It is within the AB 617 boundaries, and it is an effort to rezone land that has been zoned for neighborhood and mixed use. And so the request from the owners of the land is to allow it to go back to being industrial zoning. And so the community has spoken out since it was released and has been in opposition to it. And so I'm hoping that AB 617 steering committee members who are aware of this would be in attendance for the city council meeting on Thursday, September 29th, where the agenda item will come forth, and city council has an opportunity to either support the Southwest Pacific plan that they endorsed in 2017, or to start undermining it piece by piece. And that's what a rezone would actually do. So happy to share any other information with that, but it's, again, this is something that came up roughly a year and a half ago. The second thing is you may have spoken about this at the beginning of the meeting, but I know that I did receive like the request for retaining community steering committee members. And I don't know if you went over that or if there were any changes in the process of recruiting new members or retaining the current members. And so my question is, did that process change? Did we change any of the requirements for who is eligible to sit on the steering committee? Are we concerned or interested in doing recruitment? And if so, what might we be looking for? So.
No, and thank you for bringing that up, Dr. Curry. And that's, I meant to bring it up as earlier. We did go through a process and we're still wrapping up with a few of the members. The Fresno Steering Committee, we had great response to the initial kind of renewal process, which is similar to what we've done in the past. There have been no changes to the criteria. There were a few additional things that we added to that to get more information about the best ways in which to communicate, provide information to steering committee members, things of that, whether it's through text, email, what works best for the steering committee members. And then in regards to future opportunities to add members, that is definitely something that we're looking to bring back and have a more discussion with the CSC members, either through in a agenda setting meeting or in a CSC meeting. So I think as we finish that process, we are going to be discussing it more with you and maybe what opportunities it look like, and reaching out to the broader community potentially to look to add additional people that are interested in getting involved in this process and really helping move all these measures forward. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, thank you. It does seem as if the folks that have been on this call consistently have been a part of this from the beginning. And so did we basically retain everyone that has previously committed?
Yeah, we're still finalizing, finishing that up. I would say there were a few people that did not meet the original qualifications. And so we definitely encourage them to continue to participate as a public member. And we've seen them here tonight, and appreciate them continuing to provide the same level of input in the process.
So there's been no change in the requirements of eligibility that we have written since the beginning in the charter.
It's exactly the same as it was before.
Okay, well, I'm glad to know that. I think people that have committed to be in these meetings and have shown an interest, unless there's some reason why we wouldn't want them to participate, I'd be curious to hear what those changes might be, because you're alluding to some changes, so I'm curious what those might be. But my second question had to do with, or my first question had to do with any commitment to weighing in on the side of the West Fresno families and residents in terms of this rezone application that's being put forth.
I don't know if everybody, I missed some of that, Dr. Curry. It broke up.
Yeah, I was asking specifically if there would be a commitment for supporting West Fresno residents, having already weighed in on the zoning change for this Elm Avenue parcel, these 92.5 acres, whether or not we would expect that our AB 617 committee or the Air District would be weighing in support of the families who have already identified that they don't want any more industrial use in West Fresno.
Yeah, I kind of going back, we did share the letter that we sent in response to that project, and
right
with the steering committee members, and so that's on the record, I believe, still for that item.
Will you be updating it and just referring back to that letter? Because the way our city works, they're not going to go back and read that letter. So it's almost like in our process of commenting, when something is long-term, you have to say, hey, the Air District again is restating, please refer to our letter that we still are in opposition of that. Is that something, Ryan, that whoever is in charge of reviewing permits that are going through in 617 can visit again before next Thursday and re-comment? Because that one comment letter that's passed is kind of, in a sense, null and void unless you update it with a cover letter.
Yeah, I'll definitely follow up with Brian and Mark on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa has her hand up.
Go ahead, Lisa. Thanks, Kimberly.
Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, Ivanka. Real quick question. What is the official position on Elm Street? And can we get a commitment as a member of the public? Can I get a commitment that the Air District will resend with a cover letter their official position to not only city planning and all the rigmarole that goes with that, but also to each of the city council members?
I can't commit to that, Lisa. There's all sorts of process that needs to be looked into. I don't, like, as someone that is not in that, I can't, commit us to doing something if I don't know if we're allowed to do something. I can commit to definitely looking into it, and you have my full commitment to do that.
So what you're telling me is that when you write a letter and you submit that again to the city planning process, that you're not willing to put a CC to every single city council member? That's the commitment I'm looking for.
Well, my expectation is with the city of Fresno, if it's in the packet, I think, the responsibility of council members is to review the documents that are a part of that packet.
But I also know that my city council person would appreciate it being sent directly. So she knows she's waiting for it, actually.
Okay.
We're really just asking you to take a proactive approach because this is a major impact within 617. And the process of just saying, well, we sent it once, that just doesn't fly. Like, we're asking for a proactive approach to make sure that this lands at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Things that they would possibly review again.
Yeah.
Because our city needs reminders. Look how long this 617, this 92-acre elm rezone has been some time. So we know that our council members may not even get to reviewing the information until it's sent out after Friday. Like, the process of, they need the time to review, and it's not proactive enough to say, well, we sent it a while ago, which is over 6 to 8 months ago since this process.
Yeah, no, I understand exactly the request. And like I said, you have our commitment to, talk with the city of Fresno in regards to the comments that we provided, and, how that's incorporated and, shared out.
This is actually, I know we're coming to an end, Liv, but this is a perfect example for everyone to remember why there was that importance of having an MOU with our city and to having agreements, or because now it's just relying on some weak verbal back and forth right now that shouldn't even be required. These are projects that are happening within the 617 area that should have a set standard of review that goes above and beyond that process that the city and the Air District already has. So this is that example right now of why we needed some agreement with the city that they walked away from. I see Kimberly's hand up. Go ahead.
Really quick question. Thank you, Ivanka. Thank you for the conversation that's taking place right now around the rezoning of Elm Avenue in West Fresno. Ryan, my question to you is that will this committee receive any type of email stating if the Air District is going to send the letter again with the cover letter in opposition of the rezone, stating that they don't want that to happen? I feel that will be very important to this committee for us to at least know the position that the Air District is going to take. And as someone who grew up in Southwest Fresno, this is a very important thing right now that's taking place. This rezoning has been going on for almost a year. It's very detrimental to those residents that stay in West Fresno. As an asthmatic and a parent of an asthmatic son, there should be no more industrial facilities placed in West Fresno. The Southwest Fresno plan was passed in 2017, and we should not be revisiting this. So it'd be very, very imperative if the air district will side with the residents of West Fresno and stand with them against this fight of having this rezone not take place. Because if this rezone takes place in West Fresno, it's going to open the door for more industrial facilities to be put in place and for the zoning to be changed back. African Americans and the Latino communities that live in West Fresno has a high rate of asthma and other respiratory problems due to these facilities. And that's just only going to increase it and take more years off their life. They already got 20 years off their lifespan already. We don't want to keep adding on more. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. And yeah, we can provide an update before the meeting.
Go ahead, Nazreen.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank those who brought up the Elm. I forgot who brought up the Elm Avenue because there's been some discussion, but thank you for bringing that to our attention. I have that on my calendar, and I plan to personally. I know all of us are individuals and we have employers, but I plan to personally be there and make a public comment. And then I think we're at that part of our meeting tonight where we are providing any updates or public comment. So I just wanted to provide an update from my employer, Caglia Environmental. And we have filled out a pre-application to the city of Fresno regarding our office expansion. So our office at our facility within the AB 617 plan area on Cedar Avenue is, we have applied and have started the process to move from 2,000 square feet building to a 4,000 square feet building to address our growing staff. It'll be for our customer service, our marketing, our billing team, create a conference room in that facility, and then allow for a lift so that those in wheelchairs can actually get up to our second floor. So that I know that this group has been very interested in hearing updates like well in advance before they happen. And so because we started the pre-application process and we know it'll take a long time, I just wanted to update this team and this committee so that way everyone knew what we were planning at that site before they hear about it, some other way. So I can put my contact information in the chat in case anyone has any questions. But I just wanted to provide that update.
Thank you, Nazreen. It's definitely appreciated, I think, the advance notice that you're giving this committee. Brian?
Hey, Liz, I got one more quick update that I forgot to mention. We are in the process of planning another lawnmower trade-in event. Several of you guys participated in the last one we had back in May. We're looking to schedule another one in late October. So by the next month's meeting, we should have some more information for this committee. If there's information that's available prior to that meeting, we will be sure to send that out as quickly as possible. At the last event, we had about 100 lawnmowers that were available. We're looking at having between 200 and 250 that would be available for this particular event. And it would operate much the same way that we did the last one, where people would apply ahead of time and we can get all that information taken care of. So for those of you that were at that event, it was a lot of fun. Great to get those old lawnmowers out of service and get the zero emission ones in place there. Basically looking at having the same type of model that we had before, working with steel, working with Alertolite, and getting those lawnmowers out there. So again, we'll have more information by the next meeting, and any additional updates will be sent out to this committee.
Thank you, Brian. Are there any final questions or updates from the committee before we start wrapping up and reviewing our action items? Okay. So we will move on and I will share my screen again. Can everyone read this well? So first, the Air District will share a list of community activists and other community-based organizations who are a part of the climate equity work in the AB 617 boundaries. Next, Caltrans will provide a summary of public comments and feedback that was provided to them on their environmental document that impacts the South Fresno community. Next, the Air District will discuss CSC membership and recruitment at the next agenda setting meeting. And last, the Air District will follow up with the City of Fresno regarding the Elm Street rezoning. Are there any questions or modifications or additions to these action items for tonight?
Yes, would number 4 include following up with some notification to the steering committee here
Yes.
on whether or not there is any communication between the Air District and the City of Fresno?
Mm-hmm. Is there a particular date, Ryan, that you think you can commit to?
I mean, it'll definitely be before Thursday's meeting.
Okay. I will make that change. And are there any other questions about the action items? Oops, sorry. Lisa, go ahead.
Possibly, you know, there might be some phone tag involved with the Elm Street. It would be best if you get the information out and done by next Tuesday, because I know Wednesday staff is basically not available the day before, because trust me, I've tried to get a hold of staff before a city council meeting. And since they canceled the last one, they're really going to be busy. And I think even Tuesday is a push, but Tuesday would be really good. Oh, could you put the list back up? Because I had one other question.
Yes. How's that, Lisa?
Still can't see it, but I'm trying.
Let me zoom in for you.
Yeah, it's not working. So
okay.
Yeah, and also too, can I please get a copy of the lawnmower trade-in, a flyer sent to my home, please?
At least as soon as we have it available, we'll send it out.
Yeah, because last time I put it out, and actually somebody got back to me and said they actually traded their lawnmower in. I was like super excited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we've heard a lot of community residents have been participating in these programs across the different AB 617s.
Yes, thank you.
So, thank you. I think if there are no other comments, we will wrap up, and I'll just quickly share my screen again so we can see when our next meeting is. Our next agenda setting meeting is going to be October 19th, and that will be for setting the November meeting. That is because at our previous agenda setting meeting, we were very efficient and managed to discuss both tonight's agenda as well as the agenda for the October meeting. So for October, we will meet on the 12th, and I believe we have Genevieve who will be co-hosting and leading us through the indirect source discussion. And I believe we can conclude this meeting and move on to any public comments. But if not, I just want to say good night to everybody and thank you again for your patience with the technical issues and for staying a little later tonight.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Thanks to the co-hosts.